Welcome in. I would say the bass is dropped, but I don't think there was a bass in the Soccer Over There intro. The horns have dropped just like the rain dropped this morning, and it's been a weird SDH kind of day. So we're getting a Soccer Down Here / Soccer Over There evening edition of the show with, I guess, a tag team of co-hosts today. Right now, hey, I am Jason, and John is joining in from the beach.
Well, the Gulf, yes.
I mean, there's a beach there, right? Beach is universal. I think that fits. And Nick will be joining in. So it's going to be one of those kind of shows. It's probably not going to make much sense. It's probably going to be all over the place. I would apologize in advance, but I think some people are entertained when it's crazy and full of shenanigans. So, have at it. It's going to be one of those kinds of days. It's been a long day for me. I was up at the training ground at 10 o'clock this morning and left there at about 4. Lots of stuff that's going to be coming out at 929thegame.com. I've got a good interview with Tony Annan for you. I got a good interview with Stephen Glass for you of Atlanta United 2. A 5-part kind of, I guess, overview of what preseason is going to look like for Atlanta United. Lots of stuff. And I know a lot of people have seen the interview clips today so far from Joseph Martinez, from Brad Gazan, from Frank de Boer. I think what I took away from this, John, and I mean, you've been at these kinds of events before, whether it's Atlanta United or any other team. It feels like the first day of school. It feels like, everything is possible, and everyone in the Atlanta United orbit, I think, is looking back at a year that was a good year, but not the best year that was actually within their grasp, and they don't want that to happen in 2020. It wants, going into 2020, I think everyone associated with the club wants it to be the best year.
That's what day one's all about. It's day one at school. It's when baseball is there. Everybody has the chance to chase after the World Series. And if you're a fan of Atlanta United, last year, you did add more trophies to the trophy case. There was an opportunity to add others. You came up just short. And that's what you're working for. With the expectations that were set in the season where you won MLS Cup, you now have that notion that comes across your table every year. It's like, okay, we want to be competing in that last match of the year. We want to be chasing after that title. We want to raise that trophy again. We want to do it in front of our home crowd. We want to have all of those things that are associated with it. We want to continue to add to our pedigree. And you have a bunch of players who are very, very driven to get back to where they were, knowing that they could have had that chance to add more trophies to the trophy case. And, day one, you get your workouts, you get your rain gear, you get your workouts, and you get everything squared away and take those first steps.
Yeah, the weather was crazy today. I mean, driving up to Marietta, it was about as bad as I've driven through. It was really nasty. Had the Bojangles for breakfast.
Very nice.
The country ham and egg biscuit. I'm glad I got that. I'm glad I stopped there because I was so busy. I didn't eat again until I got home at about 5 o'clock.
Yep.
So that country ham and egg biscuit was pretty clutch. At that point, I caught everybody up on a very quick kind of SDH snack, but went through everything from the weekend and went through the LGP Fernando Mesa situation / deal. I mean, I don't know if we're ever truly going to get the information behind this. Maybe, I guess the biggest question that I have out there is how did it go down between Necaxa and Tijuana?
Right.
How did Meza go from Necaxa to Tijuana and then to Atlanta, and why? There were players who had moved, I think, a few days before from Tijuana to Necaxa. Don't know if there's anything to it. Honestly, don't know if there's anything to that period. Intra-league moves in Mexico are strange and not easy to follow because there are rules and there are unwritten rules and there are agreements and there are handshakes and it's complicated. But what we do know is Fernando Meza did spend his first day in Atlanta at the training ground, and Atlanta United just tweeted out some pictures of him from training. I really like what Meza can bring to this group. He's different, and it's something Darren Neal said to Dukes and Bell this afternoon. He's a different kind of player. He's not LGP. He's not the same type of center back. But he's a player who fits what Atlanta United wants to do, and he's a player that will bring some leadership. And this was what Frank de Boer mentioned this morning. When you've got a back line that could include Miles Robinson, one of the top young center backs in the country, a teenager in George Bello on the left, it's good to have a player in between the two like Meza, who is not an older veteran player, but is a player with a lot of experience who can bring that to the table and help, keep things structured in the back.
I was going to ask you, how much tape have you gone back to see when it comes to Meza and his time in Liga MX?
A decent bit. What stands out to me is his quickness. I like the way he reads the game. I like the way he intercepts passes. He doesn't have to wait and make the tackle or pick a ball off of somebody when they're trying to dribble past. He can jump in and take the pass initially. That's a nice trait to have. I don't know if he's got the same long diagonal that we saw out of Leandro Gonzalez Perez. I haven't seen a whole lot of clips of him attempting it, and that's the harder thing to read here. Just because he hasn't done it doesn't mean that he doesn't have it. It depends on that team's tactics. It depends on what they're trying to do. Seen a few clips. He's a very technical player, so he'll fit into what Atlanta United wants to do. I think the biggest thing that I took out of what Frank de Boer said this morning was tactical flexibility. You want players like Meza, players like Lennon, players like Gressel, players like Heinemann, players who can play a variety of roles. Walks fits into this as well. Lorenowitz fits into this. Guys who can play 2, 3, maybe 4 different positions in the team. And guys who can adjust to playing one role in minute 1, another role in minute 30, and if needed, another role in minute 60. And that's what Atlanta United has worked on and built, and I think last year was part of that process. But the players that you're seeing are guys that can do a lot of different things. And just from a very simple way of looking at it, you know, when you're looking at constructing a game day 18, you have your starting 11. You have 7 more guys. One of them is going to be a goalkeeper. So you have 6 outfield players. You're not going to be able to have a true backup for every position in your starting lineup in your game day 18. You got to have some guys in that game day 18 who could fill in a few different roles. And that's important. But if you have that, plus guys who are going to start who can change roles. You know, if you go through what you would expect to see is a starting 11 right now and just put the names down on a sheet of paper, you can't tell what the formation is. That's a good place to be. Meza's a big part of that because he gives you the ability to play 3 center backs. He gives you the ability to play a line of 4, and he can play on the outside of a line of 4 if needed, and he can play as a holding midfielder if needed. Gives you a lot of flexibility. His experience and his versatility are going to be a really big bonus for Atlanta United.
For me, that's one of the big takeaways for everyone who's going to be a part of the 18/24/25 is flexibility as an individual. Can you do, as you said, can you do one thing at kickoff? If Frank starts to wave and redirect things from the side or has the players sorted out, can you do something else in minute 30? When you're told something at the half, can you come out in minute 46, do something different? And then if you have to bring it home in minute 70, can you do something else? And so I think that that's something that is one of the major plot lines, if you want to call it that, is everyone who's coming in, everyone who's going to be a part of this roster in 2020, what can they bring to the table in situation A, B, C, or D that's going to help everything go along? It's not just having someone who's fitting in one position in one place for a full period of time. It's what can they do and how can they contribute in different ways over the course of 90 minutes.
Yeah, it's going to be key. I think Frank de Boer showed that he likes to have a team that can do that. He talked about how he wants to have a team that can read those situations on their own and make those adjustments in the team's shape and play on their own, where it doesn't have to come at halftime, doesn't have to come with a note being passed from the bench. It can be something that players recognize as they're in the match, and that's what you'd like to get to. Something that really stuck with me that Frank said today was last season they had very few opportunities to have true, meaningful training sessions. The travel, injuries, schedule, all of it made it difficult to actually work on things. This time right now is going to be critical to that. Now, I know people are going to then say, well, why don't we have all the players that we're going to have? Look, nobody has that, and that was actually one of the first questions for Frank this morning. Everybody wants that. In a perfect world, you have it. You rarely do. It's just not how the business works. I mean, you can look back at the number of teams that have had their full roster day one of training camp, no moves. It's going to be a very small list. That's worldwide. That's not just MLS. That's worldwide. You want that, but what you do with what you have is you start to build. And players who then come in later are going to have to fit in to what's already been built. And that's a challenge, and it's something that just happens. All right. Let's get into a couple of things because the tweets are starting to fly. Emery Russell asked about the take on the Andrew Carleton situation. So here's what we know at this point. Doug Robertson, AJC, tweeted out just after 10 this morning that Atlanta United was sorting out a loan for Carleton, team to be determined. Jeff Reuter of The Athletic tweeted just a little bit ago that he's hearing that team would be Indy 11 of the USL Championship. Emery Russell just asked for our take and said, I think it's good. That boy just needs to play on a consistent basis to really elevate his game. I absolutely agree with the latter. Mm-hmm. He needs minutes. He needs to play. He needs consistency. I think a loan is a good situation for him because I think it's a different kind of challenge. And I think going to a team like Indy is going to a team with expectations, first off. Mm-hmm. Going to a club and a manager in Martin Rennie that's not just going to be happy to show up. They have expectations of winning championships. And he's going to have to elevate his game to that. That's a good thing. I think Andrew Carleton is an incredibly talented player. I think we saw a lot of that late last season. I think it needs to be shown on a more consistent basis. And I think you also need to get beyond just showing that talent, making an impact more often. And I think that's what he did late in the USL Championship season. And I think alone, I don't look at it as a negative. I look at it as an opportunity for him to get a more consistent share of games if he earns it. And he's going in with a blank slate, and he gets the opportunity to earn it.
All right, to recap Indy 11 a little bit, made it to the conference final last year before losing to Lou City 3-1. In the regular season last year, they finished as the 3 seed in the East, 19-9-6, finished at 63 points. Offensively, last year, Indy 11 only had 2 players who had double-digit goals. Tyler Pasher had 13. Dane Kelly had 10. No one else had more than 3. So I think for Andrew, if Indy 11 is in fact the destination, when it's officially official, I think that he can become a contributor. But once again, it goes back to that point that we've talked about. He has to earn his minutes. It's not something that he's just going to be put out there. Martin Rennie is going to put out there a lineup that will get them back to the conference final, if not to the next game on the board, chasing after a USL championship. So, and in looking at the timeline, I've seen a lot of folks who are sitting there saying that, yes, it would be good for Andrew to get that fresh start. And so I think that if it does end up being Indy 11, there's a chance for him to shine in a Martin Rennie team, but he has to earn those minutes.
Yeah, he's got to get those minutes, and this is, I think more than anything, it's an opportunity for a little bit of a fresh start. Sometimes that change of scenery can unlock things in a player, especially a younger player, and you see these types of moves all the time where young players go away to, in some ways, find themselves. I think for Andrew, it's just to get that opportunity for consistent playing time, not potentially get bumped out of a position because with Atlanta United too, a player's coming down from the first team, they need to get minutes, and then that pushes Carlton out to the wing. Or, you get a situation where you have some injuries with the first team, he has to go up to the first team but be off the bench and not play. This clarifies everything. It simplifies things for him. This is your season, this is your schedule, go make the most of it. Period. You don't have to worry about anything else. You don't have to worry about changes. You're playing well. You earn that spot. You're going to keep playing in that spot. Period. Yep. It's a huge opportunity for him, and I hope he can make the most of it. Questions out there on Twitter for us today. Ricky Ricardo asked if I saw Edgar Castillo at training today. Is he on trial with us? If so, what would he bring if signed? I didn't. It's honestly the first I've heard of it. But they did 2 sessions today. The afternoon session, I had already left, so I don't know if he showed up there for the afternoon session. You're seeing this right now, though. Bradley Wright Phillips was on the official preseason roster for LAFC as a trialist. Players who are out of contract are trying to find contracts. Edgar Castillo, what would he bring if he was signed? Veteran, left-sided player. He's 33 years old. Last season, played for New England, 20 starts, 5 assists. Option was declined, so he would be completely free and clear to sign a new contract. He had a great 2018 for Colorado. I thought his 2018, if he had been on a better team, he would have been a best 11 candidate player. Every time I saw Colorado in 2018, Edgar Castillo jumped off the screen at me. I thought he was that good.
Yep.
New England, not quite the same. And New England for a lot of last season was a dumpster fire. So it's hard to put all of that on Castillo. He would bring that veteran experience. He would bring that knowledge of Mexico and Liga MX. This is a player who, before coming to Colorado in 18, that's the only place he had played professionally. 26,000 plus minutes. I mean, you're talking about an absolute veteran. So I don't know if he was there. I have no idea. Honestly, it was the first I'd heard of it. But he'd be a nice pickup. And when you look at having a player like George Bello, I think Carlos Bocanegra's mentioned it. Frank de Boer's mentioned it. You're talking about an 18-year-old who's had an injury history, a player that you have a ton of hopes for, a player that, was at the U17 World Cup last fall. But a player that you don't want to throw in at the deep end with no safety net. You want to have that life preserver ready. And if you have a player who can do 2 things, who can spell Bello sometimes, who can push Bello in training, importantly, you need that player. And if that ends up being Castillo, it's all going to come down to the salary numbers. It's going to come down to making it fit in the cap. But I don't take too much out of his 2019 because of how bad New England was for a large stretch of it. The only concern would be age. And I think if you're bringing him into a situation like Atlanta, you're not asking him to play 34 matches.
Right.
You might be asking him to start, 10 to 15. And you have to make sure he's physically able to do that, but that would be the main question I would have.
Ricky has another player-specific question. Chris Kilroy has a general question. Which one do you want next?
Let's stick with Ricky.
I know there's no guarantee that these are players that Atlanta United could bring in, but if Villasanti and Arzamendia and maybe Rodriguez are the guys, would it make sense to not hear anything until after the CONMEBOL Olympic qualifying?
It's possible. I don't think you'd want to leave it that long without hearing anything. I mean, you might not see them until after that because it'd be kind of harsh on Paraguay or Uruguay and their U23s to pull a player from their training because when they went, they were not with Atlanta United. I don't think you're going to leave those teams shorthanded in a qualifying tournament. So the last report I saw out of Paraguay was that Cerro Porteño had not received a transfer offer yet, I guess official paperwork, but I believe that either one or both of the players' agents spoke and said that was coming before the end of the week. With not being able, because of Olympic qualifying and because they're already there, because of not being able to bring them into training camp right now, it's not quite as time sensitive. I think you'd like to get the deal done, and I don't think if it gets done because of the way this has played out in the media so far, I don't think you're going to be able to keep it quiet. I think if it gets done, it's probably going to be announced because Cerro Porteño's season starts here soon. So I don't think they're going to want to leave it hanging over their heads either. So I think it'll get announced before that, but I don't know what kind of timeline you're talking about with those two. And Rodriguez, I know even less about. The reputable sources out of Uruguay have mentioned MLS offers, but not Atlanta specific. The only Atlanta specific one was not a major source, so I take that with a grain of salt. The Paraguayans feel more likely, and Arzamendia appears to be the most likely, but we'll have to wait and see. Darren Eales mentioned more players coming when he spoke with Dukes and Bell this afternoon, so you would expect that you're going to hear about this sooner rather than later.
Then, since we have an hour and 35 minutes left in the show, Chris Kilroy wants to hear everything. What was for lunch? What kind of tires are on Joseph's Mercedes? No detail is too trivial.
Well, I was not checking out cars in the parking lot, so I'm going to disappoint Kilroy there. Like I said, I didn't have lunch because I'll tell you what my day was. So I drove through a monsoon, it felt like, and had a biscuit, and then did a quick SDH recording and posted it. Then got over to the training ground, went out to the field. These things are always funny because, one, it's day one of preseason, and the media is out there for the first, I think, 20 minutes of the session. You're not going to see anything. There's nothing that interesting going on. Goalkeepers are off working on to one side. The rondos are going, and for those of you who don't know rondos, I was talking to Knox Bardeen about this morning. So you look at it from a distance and you think, oh, they're just playing keep away. It's monkey in the middle, it's keep away, whatever you called it as a kid. It is. And, you always see the little clips of it and you hear the kind of taunting and laughing when somebody loses it. But those types of activities are very important in building your team's culture in a couple different ways. So one is just straight up camaraderie. Because you're having fun. Yeah, there's a little bit of punishment involved in it. I mean, and different coaches do it different ways, and different rondo activities are done different ways. Sometimes there's different conditions put on it. But, I mean, we would do things with different teams. When I had a team of high school age and young adults, we would do the 5v2 rondos. You have two defenders in the middle. You have five around the outside. And if they got split, I think 3 times. So if 3 passes went between the 2 defenders, They had to, sometimes they'd have to drop down and do 5 push-ups.
I was going to say up downs.
Like run around. There was a cone to the outside of the groups. They'd have to run out there and then run back in and stuff like that, just to make it fun, because then the team's trying to do something to laugh at their teammates, and it's fun. It's a warm up,
team building,
it's activity, but it's more than that. And this is the next step to it, because it's not just that. If it was just that, you could do that with any activity. It also creates a culture of the way you want your team to play. And that's why Pep Guardiola teams do rondos all the time. And every session has some element of a rondo in it. And they'll change it up and they'll do different things, but it's rondos in every session, because what is the common thread through those teams? To be able to play fast, to be able to make decisions under pressure, to be able to play in tight spaces. Rondos reinforce that. And it's something that I would recommend to any team of players 13, 12 years old. Once you get to that point, start doing it. Do it with your high school team out there right now as you're going through tryouts. That's we would do those with my middle school team that I coached at Kip South Fulton Academy. Mostly players who had never played before. But when you look at a rondo on day one, and you look at a rondo on your last training session, it looks like night and day, because it just becomes more comfortable. And that stuff transitions over to the way you play in matches. It's big. So to see that early on, very cool to see. Lots of laughter, lots of pointing and laughing. You know, it's how these things go. Let's see, what else? What other crazy details to appease Chris Kilroy, since I did not look at tires on cars.
What about Brooks
or
Lane?
have lunch. So after that, headed back down to the pavilion. Mike and I recorded a good bit of stuff. Saw our good friend Matt Moore, who brought some gifts from Aberdeen, which was very cool.
Oh,
they
nice.
have a Aberdeen... It's not a Kangol because it's not the brand, but the Newsboy cap.
Oh, there you go.
Style of cap I wear. Matt got me an Aberdeen cap, which is kind of cool.
That's strong.
Yeah, the fact that Aberdeen has those is pretty cool to begin with. So, that was good stuff. We talked about some different things, for the upcoming season. I've got one really weird turnaround, and there's a couple different ideas on how I can handle it. So we've got a Twos game on April 25th, Saturday night at home in Kennesaw.
Yep.
First team is playing in Orlando Sunday at like 12:30. I think it's a 12:30 or 1 o'clock kick. There's flights. I mean, it can be one of those where it's do the game, go home, crash for a few hours, go to the airport, fly to Orlando.
Yes.
Stephen Glass had the idea of getting somebody to drive so I could sleep in the back. And
True.
I didn't have time to explain to him, that sounds great, but I can't sleep in a moving car. I've never been able to sleep in a moving car. I'd probably get more sleep that way if I was able to, but I can't sleep in a car. So.
Understood.
Yeah, so I'm probably going to have to do the
first thing in the morning,
first flight out.
It's a 1 o'clock kick at Exploria.
1 o'clock kick, yeah, which means we're on the air at 12:30, which means we want to be at the stadium 10:30 at the latest. Luckily, it's one that we know well, but it's probably going to be one of those like land at 7:30, 8 o'clock, eat some breakfast, and go to the stadium.
Yeah.
So, it's going to be a fun one. Let's see, what else?
That's cool that they have the Newsboy cap, though. That's strong.
Yeah, I mean, it's Aberdeen. It's not that shocking, but...
No, but just it's cool. It's cool, though. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. I'm glad that when Matt and I think it's Katie Griggs who was with him, when they see it, they're like, oh, we got to get that for Jason. That's kind of cool. So,
question to the floor.
Most of the exciting stuff. What's up?
Kevin from Charlotte asks,
Okay.
Are the result of signings league-wide a result of everyone being more comfortable where the CBA may fall, or is it just a need that players have to get in and they can no longer wait out the CBA?
They're all different. I mean, for what some people would tell you, Atlanta United hasn't signed anybody, but we know that's not true. Seattle hasn't signed anybody.
No.
Like literally, they haven't signed anybody. They have one center back on their roster. That's it. When you look at the transaction tracker at MLS, there's
Seattle, none.
Nothing. A bunch of outgoing, but nothing. So everybody's taking it in different ways. Garth Lagerwey's been clear in saying he's going to take this in a conservative fashion. He doesn't want to make signings and then not be able to keep guys. I don't know. That feels strange to me because you have guys who have left. So at a minimum, you could replicate a roster based off last year's cap. And you lose a guy who was making $500,000, well, you can replace him with a guy who's making $500,000. And you kind of might need to start making some of those signings. Leave some space, leave some opportunities, but you might need to actually get some guys in. Other teams have been very busy. So I think it's down to the individual teams. I think it's down to the leadership at the teams and their individual situations. I don't know if there's a commonality in it. I do still have good feelings about the CBA and the discussions. It just sounds like the issues that are to be resolved are resolvable. They are not as, unpredictable and just stuff you can't fix in a short-term basis. I think it's more about where things fall and where the compromises happen as opposed to creating brand new things. So I think it's doable. I think it's going to end up being okay. And I think a team like Seattle, look, let's be honest about Seattle. They have generally made their big impact moves in the summer. Mm-hmm. And that's for the last few years. So if that's what ends up happening here, most of their attack is back, so you're not really looking for any impact moves like that.
Defense.
If they're able to just pick up some guys that are available here, get this defense together, I think you have to wonder about their CONCACAF campaign. They drew Olympia, which was the Honduran team that I was worried about. I think Olympia is a team that could potentially hurt Seattle, especially in that leg in Honduras. I worry about Seattle in that situation. I worry about how well they'll start the season, but they'll make moves in the summer if they don't in this window. They've done it before.
You've mentioned, obviously, a couple of the names that we've followed as possible imports here in the offseason. 5 takes on the 5 stripes, at 5_FIVE_takes. Who are some of the names that could be on the short list for Atlanta United midfielder? Seems like that's a big priority for FDB.
I mean, I think the one that we've heard is Villasanti and potentially the Uruguayan player, and that's really what we've heard. I look at it, and when you start actually sketching it out, things are not nearly as bleak, again, as some people would lead you to believe. I was sitting with Mike Bell this afternoon talking through potential lineups and what it can look like, and it's not that bad. Is there an opportunity to get better? Yeah, 100%, because there always is. But it's not this black hole like some people are talking about it. I look at Seattle in comparison, and they're the ones that I really worry about how their roster looks as training camp opens. Atlanta doesn't look anything like that. You've got right now, so let's start from the back. On the left side, you've got George Bello. Sounds like that's going to be a place that's going to get added. That's what Bocanegra said last week. It's been echoed since. But even right now, Anton Walks has played some left back. Brooks Lennon has played some left back. Center back, you've got Miles Robinson. You've got Fernando Meza, who's also played at left back. So center back, Robinson, Meza, Walks, Campbell. Lorenowitz can play center back. Escobar can play center back, probably more likely in a 3 center back setup. That's 6 guys. Right back, You've got Escobar. You've got Lennon. If you make it wing backs, you've got Gressel. You've got Walks. You've got Meza. A lot of different options there. Central midfield. You've got Emerson Hyndman, Jeff Lorenowitz, Eric Remedi, Mo Adams. Meza can play there. Walks can play there. So you got 6 different options there. Wingers, Barco, Gressel, Villalba, Luis Fernando, who can probably play a lot of these different positions from an attacking perspective. You've got Lagos Kunga. Lennon can play as a winger. Gressel can play as a winger. We've seen Bello play as a winger at USL Championship. As a 10, as a central attacking midfielder, you've got Barco, you've got Pitti. Luis Fernando can step in there as well. Up top, you've got Joseph Martinez, you've got Tito Villalba. Those are the ones we've seen. We've seen Barco play as a second forward, especially in a 3-5-2. We've seen Pitti play there too. So you've got a lot of cover everywhere. Where can you get better? Central midfield would be one, and a lot of it depends on the personality of a central midfielder you're looking for. It's all been talked about in terms of Nagbe being traded. It doesn't have to be a like for Nagbe. There's just not many players who fit that. And that doesn't mean you can't be better than you were last year. Sometimes, and we see this in, I think, basketball and soccer the most, when you have to replace a player that is very strong and somewhat unique. Sometimes when you have to replace them in a different way, you might lose a little bit, you might gain a little bit on the other side, and that can also unlock things with other players. Sometimes it is addition by subtraction. That does happen. So just because Nagbe is gone and people say you haven't replaced him, well, you have Hyndman here from day one. You have Mo Adams here from day one. I think you have an Eric Remedi who has a lot to prove, and an Eric Remedi who doesn't want to sit the bench. And I think you're going to see the best of him early this season, so that doesn't happen. You're going to have number 10 options in Barco and Pitti, who are both capable of playing there. I tend to lean to Barco in that role. Pitti was really good in it late in the season. So you've got a lot of different options. Can you add a player like a Matias Villasanti, who's the main one who's been mentioned, who would fit into this? Absolutely. I think he's an outstanding player. I think what you've seen from him at Cerro Porteño so far, potentially breaking into the Paraguayan national team on a regular basis, and looking at the game he has, it's a good fit. Really good fit. I think you can make it work if you don't get him, but if you get him, that's another weapon. And that's what you're always looking for here. It's not just about starting 11. It's not just about starting 18. It's about building a strong squad to compete in CONCACAF, to compete in the MLS season, to win an Open Cup, and to win MLS Cup. And that's going to take more than just 11 or 14 or 18 guys.
Just because new is different doesn't mean that the new different is worse. And, just for everybody to keep that in mind, you're going to have players in and out on a yearly basis. The roster year to year will not look the same. I don't imagine you're going to have the same 23 or 24 guys year to year. But just because you lose individuals and other individuals either come in or assume roles that were similar to those individuals that you lose, it doesn't mean that you're worse off. It just means that you're different. And I think that that's just something that folks need to be reminded sometimes when it comes to the sport itself and its transitive nature when it comes to teams year in and year out.
You're going to see things move, and that's fine. But you also, have to understand that this season maybe isn't a typical season. Maybe you're not going to see the amount of moves that you've seen this time on a regular basis. it's hard when you get to year 3, year 4, year 5 of a team or of a project, because you've got guys who are at the end of contracts. And then you have to start talking about wanting to re-sign them, yes or no. How much do you want to re-sign them for? X, Y, Z, whatever number you want to come up with. Mm-hmm. And then can you make that work in the overall group under the salary cap? And that's not always easy. You can sometimes answer question 1 of, yes, we want to keep this player. 2, this is what we want to pay them. This is what they want to be paid. Cool, we're comfortable with that. And then get to the cap part and say, I can't make it work because in the overall collective, I need money over here to solve a more glaring need than what I have in this position. And sometimes that forces moves. And I think potentially that could have factored in with Leandro Gonzalez-Pirez. And look, I think when it comes to these types of situations, you're not always going to get the answers to everything.
No.
It's not good business. And you definitely can't get them while things are being worked out. And that's the thing that I guess has been maybe a little surprising with all of this. There's not a lot you can say until deals are done. And sometimes there's not much you can say after the deal's done. The deal's the deal. Sometimes you can walk through all of it. And sometimes people on either side of the deal are going to have different impressions of how and why. And that happens. Mm-hmm. I thought Felipe's piece at The Athletic about LGP going to Xolos, I thought LGP handled it really, really well. I think first it's just a well-written piece from Felipe, and we had come to expect that, but I think LGP handled it really, really well because, he made it clear that there's no ill will. His agent was in communications the whole time. I mean, he didn't, go to Tijuana by accident. He knew that things were moving along. Things got stuck for a minute. Don't know why. Don't know the details. But he made it clear for all the people who were really riled up about the comment about not training with Xolos. He made it clear that he didn't. He made it clear that he was training to the side because he couldn't, because he's under contract. And was it ideal for anybody involved? No, it wasn't. But he was enough of a pro to handle it the right way. He was enough of a pro to put his head down and put in a good performance on Friday night for Xolos. And he was enough of a pro to not talk bad about a team that elevated his career. So it's one of those situations. I think it does come down to a point where he was going to be due a new deal. If you want to keep him long term, you had to come to a new deal. And you might not have been able to come to the number that fit under the cap that made everything else work. And that's okay sometimes. He ends up in a spot that, look, he's going to bring a lot of value to that club. I think it's going to be good for Xolos. I think it's going to be good for LGP. He goes into a position to play on turf, which he's familiar with. A team that is trying to take a step up, and he's coming from a team that has done that. He's going to be able to help that group. And I think he did, even just jumping into the group before game 1. I think he did give them a lift. It's a good thing. It's a good thing all the way around. And it's ultimately a good thing that this got handled the way it did eventually for Atlanta United, because now they have the opportunity to get fresh. And this was something that Frank de Boer mentioned today. When you have a group together for a long time, sometimes you need new energy into it. Sometimes you need a different shift. You're going to have a change in personalities with this group without Leandro in it. And that creates an opportunity for players who have been here to step up into a bigger role within the collective. It also creates an opportunity for new players coming in to step up and be leaders, to be kind of rallying, people in the group, in the locker room, on the training pitch. All those things are very, very important. Sometimes, again, by making a move that takes a player out of the group, and bringing somebody else in or bringing two guys in or shifting things around, you change the energy, you change the quality for the good. And that's where you're at, because if you just keep the same group together for too long, it's going to get stale. It always does.
Yeah, stale was the word that I was going to use, whether it's the message, the translation of the message, the implementation of the message, all of those elements that contribute to the product on the field, whether it's, if you're a player, how you listen to the message, whether it's a coach, how you administer the message, all those things run that risk over X amount of time. And so having that new energy helps get everything and gives you that fresh perspective and presents things in ways that you may not necessarily have thought of previously until this new, fresh point of view came into play. So, yeah, and it's one of the things that I think that fans of teams, regardless of sport, understand sometimes is that there are times when a coach, his welcome is done. He's done everything. The message may get stale. It's time to move on. But then there are times where you just need that extra boost of energy, and it comes in different places and different sorts. And it'll be interesting here in training camp to see how the new energy integrates itself and how it shows up.
Okay, so I want to get into a few things outside of the Atlanta United world before you get tagged out. Please tell me you saw the red card in the Spanish Super Cup.
I did, but the video that I saw was kind of telescopic, but I did see it.
No, just it doesn't matter about the quality of it. It's a red card. It's absolutely a red card. It's
no doubt.
Call.
Yeah.
But it's very similar to Luis Suarez handball in some people's reactions about this. He's cheating. He committed a foul.
Foul.
He took the red card.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it was outside the box, which made it even better because it's a free kick, not a penalty.
Right.
And he basically won, because you would assume that would have been a goal for Atleti.
Right.
Fede Valverde basically won the Super Cup for Madrid. And people are saying it's the greatest red card in soccer history, and he deserves a statue.
I'll still go with Suarez as the number one, considering context.
I mean, both of them are top. Like, Suarez ultimately didn't win anything. It just got them to a semifinal. This was directly leading to winning a cup.
Yeah.
So this was great. It's tough to think that way. It's tough to be in that moment and say, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and take this because you're getting red. And I mean, he didn't.
So then let me ask you this.
What?
I've seen people sit there and say, do we extend the rule for situations like this? Instead of it, extend it, well, obviously red card, but treat it as dog-so penalty kick, even if it's outside the box.
That's dumb. That's no, because how can you justify that in the laws of the game? How do you award the penalty?
I'm all for. I'm all for not changing the rule. I just saw it on timelines where they ought to extend it for a situation like this, and I'm like, why?
No, you can't. There's no logical way. You can't write it. You can't write the law to say, well, it's a red card and we feel really bad because it's a big moment, so you should extend the penalty area larger to make sure that it's good. If it's close enough, but if it's at midfield, then no, you can't extend it that far. You can't give a penalty. You can't write the law. You can't give the referee the opportunity to say, well, that's a free kick. Well, that's a penalty. I know it was 50 yards from goal. It's a penalty.
Yeah.
Why? Because I feel like it. Because it was really mean. No, that's not how it works. I completely disagree with that take about extending the law or changing the law or whatever. It's a red card. He got punished. He's going to get a fine because of the way the Super Cup competition is now. Like, that carries over to league, so he might end up being suspended for 2 games. That's the price he had to pay. And he did, and he'll do it again probably. And he's a legend in Real Madrid history now because of what he did. Good for him. Good for that player. Good for the situation. I'm I'm good with it.
All right. What else was on your plate before the handoff?
Well, Barcelona needs a manager now. Ernesto Valverde is not in charge anymore. This is of the last hour and a half. Did you just fall down with that news?
Close. Yeah.
Okay. Try not to do that. What in the world did you do?
Missed a step.
Ay, Dios mío. Yes, so now when Barcelona managers are fired or sacked or agreed to leave, John falls down.
Yes. Because isn't...
Holy cow!
Pretty much. And so Setien is now in, right?
Yes. Long term, we'll see, because the reporting
Xavi.
from ESPN Deportes, well, Xavi agreed to wait till the summer. He didn't want to jump in, but this was before Valverde was let go, so I wonder if that changes now. After Barca collapsed in the Super Cup semifinal, kind of thought it was time for Valverde to go.
Yeah.
You kind of figured that was it, so... We've been talking about it all year on Soccer Over There. Ernesto Valverde has won 2 league titles. He's got good record, but his style of play is not Barcelona through and through. And ultimately, that meant the bar was so much higher for him to make Barcelona fans happy.
Yep.
And when you're not winning the big trophies out there and you get knocked out in the way that you did in the semifinal, it's time to go. And we'll see what they do next. I think they have to get back to somebody with Barcelona in their blood. Xavi would be that. He 100% would be that. There's others who could be that. But Xavi has the experience. He's been at the Club World Cup now. You know, has he managed it in La Liga? No. Pep Guardiola didn't either.
Nope.
So it can be done. I think that's the most important thing for Barcelona. So I think it's going back to Xavi and saying, yeah, you wanted to wait till the summer. Well, summer's here now. So let's figure this out.
I was going to say, with Setien coming in, I mean, I just wonder what the meetings were like. It's like, okay, dude, we're going to give you to the rest of the season, you're caretaker, and then we'll see. Or it's like, you're with us to the end of the year and we're bringing in Xavi. What are those business meetings like?
Well, I don't think there's any agreement with them bringing in Xavi. It wasn't that they were bringing him in the summer. It was just that, they would wait until the summer to revisit the situation. But that was before Valverde was gone. So you bring on Setien, who, understands Barca, but isn't a Barca guy. He was available more than anything. And I don't know. I haven't seen the official statement on if it's just for the rest of the year or he's just the guy, period. I don't know how they have framed this. I'm looking right now at their official website and seeing how they have put it. He'll be presented on Tuesday. He's taking over. He's actually there June 30, 2022. So he's got a contract. So that's where you're at.
All right.
So no Xavi, unless it just really fails, because every contract has out clauses. Every contract has ways to get out of it. Maybe there's that too.
Okay, so we'll see. We'll see the next stage in what it means for Barca. Setien on the touchline. Get your Fanatis.
Yeah, or BNTV if you can get that wherever. Some cable systems don't have it. Some do. Fanatis has it. Fubo TV has it. Other options have it. But yeah, that's where you want to watch La Liga. And Zinedine Zidane just keeps winning trophies. Just keeps winning trophies. Crazy.
And people still want him out.
I don't think there's that many people who really want him out. I really don't. I don't know if there were that many people to begin with. I think
they're just the
easy.
loudest.
Well, yeah, there's part of that, but Also, I think there was a lot of speculation that the leadership wanted him out. I don't know if there was a groundswell from Madrid fans who wanted him out. I didn't really get that sense. It felt like more of, well, because of this, he's going to move because the leadership's going to want him out, or they're going to want to make a change, or they don't get along, or whatever. Well, they've got the relationship going now, and he won another trophy for him, so they'd be kind of dumb to change it right now.
True.
You just keep rolling, and if you didn't want him, you shouldn't have went back to him.
Nope. So what else is on your soccer over there-ish brain?
Well,
or
we have
soccer
another
down here-ish
youth
brain?
coach for the U.S. national team system, Gonzalo Segares, U15 national team coach on the boys' side. It's a good hire. Segares, Costa Rican national team player, played for the Chicago Fire for a long time, well respected in the youth game. So good hire.
What'd you think of the Brian McBride hire? While I have you,
I like it. I like it. I think McBride's a smart soccer guy. I think he'll bring a lot of, good experience to the position. And if he's got the resources to do what needs to get done, I think he'll be the right leader. I think he'll be the right leader for that group and can help make them even better. So, if he's the guy over Greg Berhalter and in charge, I think it can work. He's a Chicago guy, so you don't have to worry about that. Segares, Chicago guy,
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about that. So you got those
Exactly.
parts. That's good.
Gosh, unbelievable.
The GM role being in Chicago is a little different. That one's kind of a joke. Segares is a good hire wherever he would be. I do like the hire for Gonzalo Segares. Hopefully they start to fill out the rest of this youth coaching staff, and we go from there. We're going to take a quick break. You're going to hang on for just a minute, and we're going to get Nick Alifi on the line, and we will do the official tag in just
the hot
a minute.
tag.
Yeah, something like that. We'll be right back.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service, Ad Council, and your state forester.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
This is what matters. This is beyond X's and O's. This is the difference mutual respect makes. This is what character looks like. This is what defines us in Georgia. This is sportsmanship. School sports. It's not the outcome that matters most, but the way the games are played. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinski of Apolinski and Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
And we're back. Soccer down here, soccer over there, soccer everywhere. John's on a beach, and we found Nick Alifi.
Ooh, what's happening?
John's falling downstairs, Nick.
Yes.
Well, here's the thing, Jason. We're going to have some conversations pretty soon about what to do with John. Do we need to look at maybe some assisted living situation for him based on some of his music and food tastes? We're going to need to
phone. assisted Skype living.
That's right. Somebody who can handle, John's technology needs on a more regular basis. And apparently stats.
It's more construction needs at this rate. It's not technology, it's construction. Exactly.
Hey,
can you walk and chew gum at the same time? Answer, apparently not.
I'm right there with you, so I completely understand. It's okay. It's okay.
All right, go back to your vacation, John.
Yeah, please.
You filled in
for the evening. So
very well.
What we're going to do is we're going to call down the corner and get some white chicken and bacon pizza and our standard meat lovers, and we're going to go down there and get it and bring it back and watch a college football game on multiple screens and share in the multiple screen experience, and then wonder just how mad Preston North End is going to be for the sponsorship of Red 32 and how much more money they're throwing at Darby County as opposed to the other teams in the championship that they sponsor.
Well, I'm going to ask you this one before you go for our friends over at Prize Picks, which you can use the code SDH, and you get a quarter of your initial deposit matched. You get a free $25 two-pick play that you could use tonight on the college football championship game. Joe Burrow, 33.9. You going over or under?
Under.
Trevor Lawrence, 30.6. Over or under?
Under.
Defensive struggle? Is that what you're going with?
I don't think the number is 67.5. I don't think it's going to get there.
Wow. So who wins?
LSU, probably something 31-27-ish. I think that Clemson covers. I think that LSU wins.
Okay. We will compare notes in the morning.
All right. So we'll see everybody at 9 a.m., and I will be sure to turn the lights on in the hallway when I'm going down a flight of stairs in the future.
Yeah. Please. Thanks, John.
Say goodnight, Gracie.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Assisted living, man. It's time. We got to have the conversations.
Man, okay, we'll do that off air. Night, kids.
Yeah.
Good night, man. Take care. Have fun.
All right.
Oh, wow.
So Barcelona needs a manager now. Well, no, they have one, but they maybe not the way we thought they were going to do this, huh?
No, it's look. I understand that some of the losses as of late and the manner in which the losses took place could be viewed as a reason for firing a manager. But anytime you're at the top of the table and you're letting go of a manager, I'm gonna scratch my head. So I just to me it's sort of indicative of where we are in the world now, where you can be at the top of the table and still be in constant fear for your job. There's just a few clubs in the world where that's the case, and Barcelona is one of them.
Yeah, I mean, but when you look at Barca, let's go back to after the Inter Milan win, last game of Group Stage Champions League. Since then, they've played 5 times. They've won 1. They've only lost 1. They've drawn 3. We've worried about his position all season. And
yeah.
I wonder if this was just enough and the Super Cup semifinal loss, like kind of collapsing to Atleti, if that was just the final straw.
I think this is something that's been building for, obviously a significant period of time. I don't know if Valverde had that many friends, behind the scenes, and this tells me that may be the case, whether it be the players or whether it be some other high-ranking individuals within the club who have a lot of pull. It just seems like he just ran out of time. Like you're expected to play and win a certain way. And if you can't do that, it doesn't matter where your position is in the table. And I think it's dumb, but, okay, so let's say you bring in Kike. Fantastic. Good for you. But that doesn't change the roster issues with this team. It doesn't change the fact that you have glaring holes in the back. It doesn't change the fact that Suarez is going to be out. It doesn't change the fact that, you haven't been producing from your academy the same way that you have in previous years, and it's starting to show. So Barcelona, we've talked about this before. I think it bears repeating that, with this hire, you're essentially saying we're not going to be in the Erik ten Hag conversation, at the end of the season, should he decide he wants to move on from Ajax, which I think is exceptionally dumb. And, you're saying that, hey, we may not be going back, to any sort of stability, because there's no way, I think, in that. But from what I'm seeing, was what, a 2.5-year deal that he signed?
Yeah, through summer of 22.
Yeah, you're just asking to have dead money on the table with this deal. I don't know how you're going to have anybody come in and manage this team with the holes that they have without making significant roster improvements, not just in the summer, but also in January as well. So there have been rumors that Rafael Leao, the AC Milan player, the Brazilian starlet, could be on his way to Barcelona, that they've been kicking the tires since Suarez is going to be out. But I think that's a fine move. He's a very good player, but I just don't know if this is the kind of moves that you need to be making. But they have been making solid, steady moves for a while. I mean, they brought in Kevin Prince Boateng? Like, dude, what are you doing? Like, it's not Barcelona. That's not a Barcelona move.
They were really close to bringing in Carlos Vela. I mean, as a kind of a... And Vela's been a talented player in La Liga. It's not like, it's completely out of the realm of possibility, but they were so short in that position that they were considering bringing him in on a loan from LAFC for 6 months. I mean, that's bad roster construction if you're getting to this point.
Oh, it's terrible roster construction. And I think we're beyond the point of criticizing, like, hey, what are you guys doing? And now we're more into what have you guys done? I look at this as, for all of us homeowners out there who experience the joy of things going wrong and having to pay for it yourself, there are some projects you just put on the back burner. You're like, hey, we can't afford this right now, so we're just going to kind of wait. And, that spot on the ceiling, I think it's been there. Do you think it's been there, honey? Yeah, I think it's been there for a while. And then before you know it, your roof's caving in because, water buildup. And I think that's where we are now. You're starting to see massive problems because of a roster ineptitude, for lack of a better term, and the way that you've been handling your talent. I see a very similar situation to what AC Milan went through at the tail end of their epic run after Champions League appearances and Scudettos. That now you're seeing what happens when you keep players too long and you try to keep a golden generation for 2, 3, 4, 5 years longer than you should have. And what's really going to be crazy is this whole experiment maybe only has 2 years life in it anyway, depending on when Mr. Lionel Messi decides that he's going to just ascend to the heavens at his will. And when that happens, who's going to save him? There's no one on that roster who can walk in right now and just save them and can walk on the field, and automatically you get the idea that maybe Barcelona can pull out a game if they're down 2-1, if they're down by aggregate. Hey, who's somebody who can steal us an away goal? Well, that's Messi right now. And beyond that, I don't know who else you're going to be calling upon who can really save you. So we could say whatever we want about Real Madrid, and we could talk about the way that they construct their roster and how they go for guys, but they churn and burn. And part of that is they bring in fresh talent. However much they pay for it is one thing, but I don't think you're going to see them necessarily in the same situation as long as Zidane is at the helm, and he has that kind of pull and the kind of ownership of the team that he does. The problem is there's no ownership of this team outside of Messi, and you can't have a player have ownership for a team and with these high stakes if you're firing managers when you're in the top position.
Yeah, you can't have that anymore. Let's talk about Madrid. This Spanish Super Cup, with a Super Cup, which is usually just 2 teams. This one was 4 because welcome to Spain, except it wasn't in Spain. It's all about the money. But it turned into an event that gave us a lot of talking points. What did you think of Fede Valverde's red card in the final that extended that game to penalties?
Beautiful. I loved it. I loved every bit of it. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And And people will scream and they'll go nuts and how they need to change the laws and it should be a penalty and they should, and I'm sorry if I'm repeating points that may have been spoken of earlier. I make a pretty awesome spaghetti, Jason. And I make a pretty awesome spaghetti, and I was getting spaghetti set up for the Duchess and Dr. Wifey. So I'm just saying that I think that it's all buffoonish to talk about changing the laws of the game because a player goes and does something like this. It's part of it. I'll put it to you, this way, that when the Falcons were collapsing against the Patriots, right? Mm-hmm. If a couple of Falcon players had just suddenly, oh no, I'm injured, and fell on the ground and gave that team time to breathe and time to collect themselves and figure things out, the Patriots would have been going nuts. Oh my God, this is cheating. This is terrible. I can't believe they've done this. What would have Falcon fans have been saying? No, nothing wrong here. Nothing to see here at all. And when it's your team, you don't care. And in this case, it's Real Madrid. They have a lot of enemies. They have a lot of people who don't necessarily care for the team, what they stand for, blah, 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 blah. I don't care. If I'm in that situation and I got my paycheck is on the line and Zidane's looking and saying, hey, who's going to step up and save us? I'm taking him out. I'll eat the red card. I'll go back to the locker room with the biggest smile on my face. I will collect the bonus. I'll collect tips from the players. I will enjoy my fine night out in Madrid where I will be wined and dined by the rest of the team. And I will stand by as kids in barbershops in Madrid for the rest of their days will be talking about the time that I took out that player. And
he was man of the match.
Yeah. And made it happen. I don't care. Yeah, I don't care one bit. I love it. It's part of the dark arts. It is part of the dark arts, and it's part of the game.
Yeah, I don't even know if this qualifies as dark arts. This is just competitive juices. Like, this is what it should be. I have no problem with it. It's not even shady.
Well, I go back to the 30 for 30 Roll Tide War Eagle, where they're interviewing the Alabama tree guy, and he talks about how in one Iron Bowl, a player from Alabama ran off the sideline and tackled an Auburn player from going in for a touchdown, right? And I think it's the same thing, man. I think it's the exact same thing. Sometimes you get in these games and hell or high water, I'm stopping them. I don't care if I got to throw a water container, from the technical area. I don't care. We're winning the game. And you can talk to me about fair play all you want when it's your paycheck on the line. When it's your paycheck on the line, that's fine. And just go ahead and think of all of your American sports heroes. Oh, Peyton Manning. I love Peyton Manning. He did things the right way. Well, Peyton Manning, whenever he was at Tennessee, they would leave the door open. They would prop the door open. It was an automatic locking door. And so the quarterbacks could come in and get film study. Peyton would come in and would kick the block out so the door would close so the other quarterbacks couldn't come in. Okay? And so it's one of those things. When it's your job, you will do whatever it takes to win. And I love it, man. I think it's amazing. And you're not changing the rules for this. Stop it. We're done pretending that's even an option on the table. I saw the same stuff you did, man.
Yeah.
People on Twitter, going nuts and screaming about changing the laws and the rules and things like that. And
there's just no way you can. There's no way you can make it work to where you could actually write a law that makes any sense with it.
No.
He broke the rule. He was red carded, and he's going to be suspended for at least a game, potentially an extra game because it was a straight red card. Mm-hmm. That's fine. That's the punishment you take.
No, I go tell Zidane, look, man, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take a vacation for a couple days. We're going to get out of town.
Probably going to give him whatever contacts that he has for the nicest restaurant wherever he wants to go, and you're good.
Yeah, there you go. You're not buying a drink in Madrid anytime soon, I can tell you that.
No, he'll be taken care of. Let's talk about our good friend Gennaro Gattuso.
Yeah.
I saw this come across on Mondays with Reddit. Gattuso was asked if perhaps Napoli needed to appeal to his namesake, San Gennaro, the patron saint of Naples. And Gattuso said, I think we all need to go on some kind of pilgrimage to San Gennaro because we're conceding some absurd goals.
Yeah. I think you're. I think at this point,
too, just
yeah, I'm sure. Gattuso, man, like Gattuso's in an impossible situation.
Yeah,
he inherited a dumpster fire from, not even one of Carlo Ancelotti's making, but the one that De Laurentiis. When you get in a power struggle between a team owner and a manager, and not even a manager, but the players themselves, no one will win on that one. And that's what Gattuso's finding out. That's what the players are finding out, and De Laurentiis is finding that out as well. De Laurentiis will go to his grave before he says he made the wrong move in firing Carlo Ancelotti. But Napoli is going to. I'm PETA, log off. But I'm talking about we're sacrificing chickens. I'm asking a player or two to donate a kidney. Whatever we have to do, we're going to do it. If we take a month's wages and donate it to some impoverished church, Italy is full of stories of miraculous events that have happened whenever pledges have been made to build a church, rebuild a church. I go back to when the plague was descending on Venice, and the Venetians said, "Hey, look, if you guys, speaking to the heavens, obviously, if you guys lift the plague here, we're going to build a church for you." And the plague was lifted, the church was built, and life went on, as expected after this little miracle took place. So look, it's Italy. Let's go. There's churches everywhere. Just find an impoverished church. Hey, look, Napoli's sponsoring your church. We're rebuilding everything, whatever we need to do. But while you're at it, why don't you go ahead and stock your players? Why don't you get some new midfielders in there? Why don't you go ahead and prepare for Koulibaly leaving? It's going to get worse before it gets better for Napoli, unfortunately, because summertime's coming and Koulibaly, he has a standing agreement with De Laurentiis that he's going to be out, that they're going to let him move. Now, whether or not De Laurentiis honors that, we'll see, but it's going to get worse before it gets better for Gattuso. And it's really sad because Gattuso, I think, proved his mettle with Milan. When you look at where they are now compared to the fact that they were on the verge of a Champions League berth when he was there with the bums that are occupying, they're wearing the Rossoneri now. I'm sorry, the Rossonero rather. I just think it's buffoonish that Gattuso, is in this situation. I feel terrible for him because he's a better manager than I think what people are seeing right now.
Yeah, I almost wonder if he should have turned that gig down.
Yeah, I think he should have. If you're Gattuso, I think he is probably one of the more stubborn individuals that you will ever encounter in your life. He's very proud. We all heard the stories about him as a player, how psychotic he was, stabbing people with forks and whatnot. But the Milan job, and we made jokes, in our pre-production meetings about him being the Italian Ed Ogeron. He is Milan through and through.
I want those two to hang out.
Oh God, I really do.
Want those
Wouldn't
two
it be
to hang
amazing?
out so bad.
Like a ton of crawfish pasta. We're gonna make this. We're making this happen.
This
we
needs
have
to be like
happen.
an exchange between the two. Like we need to get Ed Orgeron over to hang out with Gattuso in Italy, and then we need to get Gattuso like out in the bayou.
Oh yeah,
this needs to happen.
Can you imagine Gattuso in an airboat, like zipping through the bayous?
Oh wow!
Oh, if that's not an awesome visual, I don't know. All
right, sponsors. We need money to make this happen. This needs to be a reality show. It needs to happen.
Yes, absolutely. And when you hear the stories about Ed Ogeron, about how he was essentially like digging ditches and working on God knows what else, and all he could think about was wanting to get back to Baton Rouge in some sort of coaching role, right? And now when they talk about how there's no one happier with their job in America right now than Ed Ogeron is with LSU, I feel like that was Gattuso with Milan. And if Gattuso had been able to get them into the Champions League, he still is working there today. And that's right,
yeah.
Gwen, 100%.
Yeah, Gwen completely agrees with you.
That's right. And so whenever they pushed him out, it was such a disservice to that man. And I'll be the first one to say, I was stupid enough at times to say, yeah, maybe it's time to move on from Gattuso. Boy, howdy, was I wrong. There's no where they are now. It's outlandish. And the thing is, you couldn't go into that locker room and look at Gattuso's face and find anyone who was more committed to that club than him. You could say, Mister, I was running, I was doing this, I was doing that, and Gattuso's gonna be like, nah, fam. Nah. Let me tell you about a time that I was in a Champions League final. Let me tell you about the time that I was in a World Cup, the World Cup final. Let me tell you about all these things that I've done. Now you tell me how much you love this club, how much you're willing to work for this club, because I've done it. And there's so much turmoil with that club even to begin with that, Gattuso is, I think it's downhill from here from a management standpoint. I would like to see him get an opportunity, perhaps at Fiorentina. Fiorentina, if they can, they're going to stay up. I think Camiso is going to invest whatever cash he can in January to make sure that they stay up. But I would like to see him at Fiorentina. I think he would do really well there. I think he would work wonders with Chiesa as far as making sure that Chiesa's developing correctly and remains disciplined if Chiesa stays. But I also think that he can work some wonders with that club. I'm really hoping Rocco pulls the switch on that one. Outside of that, I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to take over Genoa and try to get them, back up into Serie A when they get relegated after this year? Okay, sure. Are you going to go to Udinese? No, you're not going to go to Udinese. It's a dead end gig. Torino, they're not going to fire Walter Mazzarri. They're not going to get rid of him. Verona, for some unknown reason, is at 9. I don't know how in the world that's even happening. That's probably the greatest stealth job in the world outside of Parma. So no one else is firing their managers right now. And Bologna, I think, and it's morbid to even say it, but Mihailovic is battling cancer, and and he's staying on the he's still associating with the club, which is amazing, and God bless him for doing it. Mm-hmm. I think Bologna and Fiorentina are probably going to be the two jobs next year. They're going to be open. I hope that he selects Fiorentina. He may select Bologna if he feels that he has more control. So it's nowhere to go but down from here, which is sad because I love Gattuso. Gattuso was one of my favorite players on that Milan side. Just because he was a psychopath, somehow he managed to do everything without getting red carded left and right. I think he sort of had some sort of Jordan rules for Serie A. Yeah, it's Gattuso. Any other players getting a red card, we're just going to give Gattuso a yellow on this one and tell him to calm down. I have their own sense of personal safety. Like, okay, if I red card this guy, what's the likelihood that he's going to kill me?
Yeah,
Carlo just kind of shrugs his shoulder.
Let's get into a player that I think is underappreciated in a different way. He set a record this weekend. Sergio Aguero, all-time leading scorer in the Premier League from players outside of England. Cool little story that I just came across on Twitter. Sam Lee, Manchester City's correspondent for The Athletic, tweeted this out. He said, at the last Copa America, Aguero went to see Scaloni, the Argentina coach, to explain how he thought they should be playing, using City tactics and Guardiola's terminology. Guardiola was told about this and said, my work with Sergio is done.
There we go.
Is a guy that I don't think we talk about enough, and maybe, it's just because of some of the other players of this era, like Messi and Ronaldo, but this is one of the all-time greats. I think, period.
Yeah, no, I think he's up there for sure. And the sad part is that we talk about how Man City's just absurd riches, and I think that may be part of. It's not just Ronaldo and Messi. I think it's the fact that he's surrounded by so much money that I think people automatically dismiss him. and it's wrong to do so. He's an incredible player, an absolutely incredible player. I don't see why the fact that he's with perhaps the wealthiest club in the world, that should be a complete slap, on him. It just blows my mind. He's exceptionally gifted from a raw skill standpoint, from a physicality standpoint. He can do anything you want him to do. I mean, he's 31 years old. He's still running roughshod, and I don't think he will ever be that guy who, when somebody says Aguero, that everyone goes, "Oh yeah, oh my God." I don't think we're ever going to hear it, and it stinks, for him. But it's. I don't know what else this man could do. Maybe if Argentina had been better during this period from a national standpoint, I think from a national team standpoint, that may be the only thing that's really it's missing on his resume. And if they're better, if Argentina's better, then maybe the conversation is a bit different, which is also completely unfair.
Yeah, it is. He's a player who just feels like he gets overlooked. And I'll be curious to see what he does next. There's speculation, and it's been going on for a little while, that this might be his last year at Manchester City. People thought last year might have been his last year at Manchester City. He said he wants to go back and play at Independiente again, the club that he started at. So, I mean, I could see that happening sooner rather than later. I don't know if there's a stop in between. I mean, it feels like Aguero's been at this for a long time. He's 31 years old. I think he's still got plenty of games left in him, and I wonder if he's a guy that could be considering a move to a team on the continent, or maybe even a team in Major League Soccer.
When I think about this move, where he's going to go next, one, I think that Man City, if things go poorly for Man City, over the next, for the rest of the year, let's say, and I get that what's happening with Liverpool is amazing and nuts and crazy, but if there's any sort of dip in form from Man City, if there's anything like Champions League wise, anything else, and he moves, I don't feel like he's going to come to MLS. I can't put a finger on it. I can't give you any facts or information to back it up. I just feel like the same way that with De Rossi, that I think he wants to go back to the motherland and just do his thing there. And when it's time, he walks off and leaves his cleats on the field.
I could see that.
I think that's the Aguero move. He just doesn't seem like someone who's, I'm going to come and to MLS and get one last, mega paycheck for, the Galaxy or Miami or whatever. He just doesn't strike me as that guy. I mean, he's married to Maradona's daughter, but but he was. I'm sorry. I think they're divorced now, but
I think so. One guy who could be coming to MLS is Chicharito. And it's a different situation all the way around. I mean, you're talking about a player who is a Mexican icon and a player who hasn't played on this continent in a long time. Started his career at Chivas and then went to Manchester United. He's at Sevilla. They paid about $8.5 million for him in the summer from West Ham. He's barely played. I think he started 4 games in total in league. They've told him, look, we're not going to really commit to a whole lot more playing time for you. Like, this is kind of what it is. Mm-hmm. If the Galaxy are able to put together $10 million, which is what it sounds like it's going to take, and probably pay him more than the $3.5 million a year he's getting, you think he ends up with the Galaxy?
Absolutely. It's dumb for all parties involved not to make this happen. Yeah. If you're Chicharito, players want cash, right? I get your bag. You have a very limited amount of time to maintain, to keep this level of physical fitness up, the health. You want to try to get as much money as you can. I'm not mad at you, but you also want to be loved, and you don't want to go somewhere where you're just a guy. especially if you're someone of some repute. So if you are Chicharito and somebody says, hey, Chicharito, why don't you come to Los Angeles for a little while? Play for a couple of seasons, get a couple of titles, walk off into the sunset, and really build your brand here. Absolutely. I will be there tomorrow. Let's get the financials knocked out and get this deal done. With Chicharito, though, I do want to know how he will handle the travel. You know, if he's able to, because we saw this with Zlatan, that is great and wonderful as he was, the travel wore on him, and even somebody who is capable of self-mythologizing and really building, you know, this sort of cult of personality around himself, like Zlatan, even he fell victim to the travel requirements of MLS. So if Chicharito comes here, and I think, you know, if you allow him time to come in and I know you're going to want to just put him on the field every chance you get, but I really want to I want to load manage him at the beginning when you first bring him in, and then from there get him used to the travel, get him used to everything, and then unleash him, you know, closer to the All-Star break, full minutes every game. You know, feel free to dive in. I think this move absolutely has to happen. Do not be Giuseppe Rossi. That's what I would tell him. Don't be someone who should have come to MLS long ago and played games and got injured and played games and got injured. And now, you know, you have a sort of a self-inflated view of where you are in the world and no one's signing you, you know? Has anybody talked about signing Giuseppe Rossi? You know, a guy who was a name, guy who played for big clubs in Europe. No one's sitting there going, well, yeah, let's sign Giuseppe. Well, why not? Because
I mean, Giuseppe, injury issues too.
Well, the injury issues are obviously tremendous for him, but I think for the right price, someone would bring him in, and he could do a significant job rebuilding his name here.
Right.
But with Chicharito, I think you're seeing something where a player who has the right people around him, who says, look, my guy, you get over here and you make your money and you get your brand built up, you are going to be a star in Los Angeles. Yeah, okay, let's go. I mean, he's not stupid. He comes here with the Mexican teams, and he sees how they pack out the joint. Yeah, absolutely. Let's go to Los Angeles, baby. I'm going to be, I'll have people screaming my name and chanting and going nuts, and I won't be just a guy, and I'm here for it.
Yeah, it would just be absolutely wild. Let's finish with a couple tweets. A lot of Atlanta United stuff with training camp opening today. I need to clarify something, and I want to get your take on it too. Okay. We talked about in the first hour, sometimes you need fresh players in the mix so things don't get stale. Kevin from Charlotte, if I was not clear about this, let me clarify. I wasn't saying LGP was stale or an individual was stale. Right. I was talking about the group. When you have the same group together for a period of time, sometimes things get stale. Not individuals, but the group dynamic. And that's something that Frank de Boer mentioned a couple of times today about things being fresh and having fresh people in the mix, having some different personalities in the mix. Things feel a little different, and things felt very competitive today. It was something Brad Gazan talked about. When you have day one, cool, it's high five, cool to see you, great to see you again, whatever, you're new, cool, I'm going to give you the high five, give you a hug, welcome to the team, and then I'm going to try to knock your block off in training, because that's what you're here to do. You're here to get better and win, and when you bring new faces into that, it keeps the group from getting stale. The whole LGP situation, I don't know if we're ever going to truly know how everything went down, but I haven't talked to you since that went down, and Meza is in. LGP is with Xolos. What do you think?
LGP, before I say anything, I have to say that LGP was personally my favorite player on Atlanta United. He was, the first time my son walked out with the team, that was the player that he escorted out. LGP could not have been nicer to Jackie Fresh. anytime he met him, and that was several times, I saw a lot of heat being thrown at the team, and I don't know how much of it was deserved, if any. How much money do I make from the team, Jason?
I don't know, actually, but
I make zero.
Okay.
Let me go ahead and tell you, I make zero.
I'm not going to get in your pocket.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. I make zero from the team. I have not once applied for media credential with the team. I speak my mind.
If I could have remembered Joseph's quote today, I would have used it.
That's right.
I couldn't remember it straight. I wanted to get it right.
That's right. But I think this is a move where, whatever went down, and the deal is done. And with LGP, there were times last season, especially with some of the high balls, where he really misjudged them. And there were times that it almost burned you. And I think a time or two that it actually did.
There were times it did.
Yeah. And so he was a very strong personality for this team, and he was very much an enforcer. And I will always be grateful to the venom he brought to that position. There was not a single forward or attacking midfielder who would not have to keep an eye on him, because he would come in and clean you out. And that's no problems there. But he's also a player at this age where if you're going to move him, now's the time. If you go too much beyond this, then you start talking about cap implications, and you're talking about diminished value. How much are you actually going to get in return for the player? There's a business calculus that gets applied to this, from the fact that it's every year you get older, with the exception of very few players, your value dips significantly. You found an opportunity to move him, and I'm not going to say game the system, but I'm going to say that you creatively found a way to maybe get a little bit of cash in a player that you really coveted in return. I think that's a phenomenal deal, and as much as my heart hates the fact that LGP is gone, from a business perspective, I'm not knocking the hustle. And we all want to keep teams together as long as we can. We enjoy it. We love that that's our guy on the field. And I felt that way with Milan for a long time. That's Pirlo. Now looking back and reading his autobiography, I know that Pirlo was a mercenary, nothing more, nothing less. And that was his mentality. And I'm not mad at him. Good, whatever. It worked out well for us. But when you saw Pippo Inzaghi scoring, goals off his butt, off his feet, off his hips, off his head, if he had a ponytail, that, whatever, any part of his body that was not the hands or arms that he scored with, I loved it. But these guys, at some point, you can't move them for anything. And in a salary cap league like this, you can't just keep re-upping them, because no player outside of Tom Brady is going to ever say, yeah, I'll take a reduced deal, in order to be on a competitive team. Now, there's an extraordinary, like 98% of the players aren't going to take that. Most say, yeah, I'll take a pay increase here. I'm in line for X. These agents are very good at this. They say, my player's in line for X. Atlanta United couldn't do it because what happens if he goes up any higher? Okay, well, now that's another player we can't bring in. That's another, contract that we have to renegotiate or push out. And, there's things that have to happen at some point where you say, look, we just need to move the guy. Maybe it's good for him. Maybe it's good for us. Obviously, there's going to be a setback because there's certain qualities that LGP brings that I don't care who we bring in. It's not going to be identical. It's going to be different. But if we're going to do it, now's the time. And they made the move they had to make. And I, again, my heart hates it, but I think it's a great reason. And I saw some guys say, well, are Atlanta United fans going to tune into, Mexico now as much as they did Newcastle? Well, I hope they do.
Yeah.
I think it's something where now we have a stake in Mexico, and for fans who maybe had not been paying as much attention down there, and now we have a reason to tune in and watch and point and again say that's our guy. When he cleans someone out for Club America, that's our guy.
Yeah, and I mean, I can't speak for everybody who talks about Atlanta United, but
Right.
You know, I tweeted that one out there. I'm like, hey, if you want to watch this, it's on Fox Deportes, and it's also in English on FS2, and that's something to keep in mind with Tijuana home games. They're going to be on FS1, FS2 in English, and there's going to be an opportunity to watch that. So you're going to have every Tijuana game on some form of TV, I think, unless they're at Chivas, because Chivas has went with the whole like over the top, their own broadcasting thing.
Oh, there you go.
Everybody else is on either ESPN Deportes or TUDN or Fox.
It's the Chivas version of the Longhorn Network. Is that what's going on here?
Chivas TV.
There you go. Yes.
Yeah, they went down that road. So, I mean, it's available. I do hope that people watch. I do think there is a difference between, and this is not about the quality, this is just about the language. There is a difference when a player goes to the Premier League as opposed to going to Liga MX for a lot of English-speaking fans. In general, and we've talked about it on SDH many, many, many times, Liga MX outdraws the Premier League.
Yeah.
Like, it does. The final, I mean, blew games away. You're also talking about a final versus a regular season game, but still, it blew it away. The audience for Liga MX is legitimate whether you speak Spanish or not. It's there. It's real. And for Atlanta United's fan base, which is majority English-speaking, they're going to follow a player to the Premier League maybe in bigger numbers. What I hope is that this is what opens up a lot of eyes because it's a club that has home games broadcast in English. Because that's a little different than if he went to, Tigres or Club America or, a club that doesn't have that Fox deal where games are readily available in English. I hope Liga MX looks at this and sees not for an American player going to Liga MX, but a player who played in the United States bringing a fan base to Liga MX that hadn't been there before. I hope that happens, and I hope Liga MX sees it, and I hope that they put more games out there in English to grow even bigger because it's a great competition. I think MLS wants to be better, and they need to try to be better, but the competition between the two leagues is going to make both better, which is a good thing overall.
Let's talk about the changing narrative for a moment, too. The fact that it used to be MLS was the retirement league where aging players came in and got their last paychecks, and that was it. They were the Fiats and the Ferraris, right? Was the whole, so to quote Zlatan. Okay, so, we're talking about bringing Chicharito in, right? Chicharito is so competitive, right? He's not
31.
He's not Pirlo.
No, 31 I think is fine.
Yeah, as much as I love Pirlo was a traffic cone on his last days at Juve, much less NYCFC.
Yeah.
But we're talking about now we have players in the Bundesliga. We have a player in the Prem, right? A couple players in the Prem. And now we've just sold a player to Liga MX, where previously we would have been trying to get players, vast majority of players. Now it's more of give and take, as opposed to just take.
And it's different ages, too.
Exactly. And that's great business. And we have to embrace, like we always talk about, the model of what it's going to, what it takes to be a successful MLS club. A lot of these owners who are complaining about, we've got to make our money and money's tight, blah, blah, blah. Okay, watch this deal with that Atlanta United did. Let's just not even talk about, Cerro Porteño or Independiente or anything like that. Let's just talk about this deal right here. Perceptions around the world are changing when it comes to players that come from MLS and the players who want to come here. And when we now are a full participant in a global market, it's not all about players who go to Europe or come from Europe. Now we're also talking about players who come from Central and South America as well, who are coming here, and now we're sending there as well. So, and it's a revenue generating, which is critical for these other teams and these other fan bases out there. Embrace that. and we're going to lose players we don't necessarily want to lose, but that's part of being where we are in the ecosystem. It's not bad, from a nostalgia standpoint, maybe a little painful, but there's an Anthony Hopkins quote because Anthony Hopkins is on Twitter. I don't know if anyone knows that.
What?
And it is must watch. Anthony Hopkins' Twitter is must watch. And he was having breakfast somewhere, and he had a moment where he just kind of stared off at this table. And he said, 40 years ago, I was sitting there with my two friends, and he named them off. He said, they're both gone. And he said, happiness then, the pain now. That's the trade-off. And that's what it is. We will always have 2018. We will have the happiness of 2018. But there will come the time when the pain, is there when these players leave. And anytime Tijuana comes to the U.S., and if they grace Mercedes-Benz Stadium, I will yell and scream and cheer and go nuts whenever they announce LGP. And he will remain, until further notice, my favorite Atlanta United player of all time. But inevitably, all relationships end in tragedy. Whether
that was bleak.
Far enough. Yeah, no, it's true. It further enough down the timeline, we have to enjoy these relationships while we can, and that's why relationships have value, because you never know whether it's business, whether it's personal choices, whether it's something beyond all of that changes it. Enjoy the relationship. Enjoy the people around you. Enjoy, watching these guys while we can. And enjoy going out to, some whatever player, name a restaurant in Chambly where they show up. Go visit and hang out and talk to them and meet them and shake their hands and enjoy the presence. Because I tell you, Miles Robinson ain't long for this league. He will be going somewhere if he stays healthy and continues his ascension.
It's all part of the deal.
You think
it's part of a club's growth.
That's right. Petey will be gone. Barco will be gone. And Joseph, as much as we love, and I know it's sacrilege to even say it, let that man have another Golden Boot season, and some team will come along and offer a deal so stupid that unless he says, no, I'm staying in Atlanta, he will be gone.
And you work to make the team better, and you work to make it fresh, because you have to consistently bring in new elements to a group. If you keep the same group together forever, one, they're going to get older and they're going to lose ability, and two, they're not going to have the same motivation. And you see top teams in the world find ways to make something be fresh the next year. Pep Guardiola's talked about it. Every top manager's talked about it, because if you don't, you already won everything. You already had success. You don't have the same motivation to go chase success because you've had it. If you bring some elements in that are new, some people who haven't had it, also some competition for playing spots, that keeps pushing everything up to another level.
Oh, no, like the Golden State Warriors, right? Were they were 73-9, and they brought in Kevin Durant. Wait, what? Yeah, the changing of the dynamic is necessary. It's vital for success. Sometimes it's not exactly in the way you want it to go down, but it's necessary and it's needed. So I'm hoping that if I have to lose my favorite player, I'm hoping it means that when Meza comes in, that he shakes the pillars of heaven and wakes some folks up, and they say, "Oh, well, what do you mean? As much as I love living in a midtown loft or in Vinings or wherever, what do you mean this guy's this good? I had not seen film that showed that this guy could do this. Well, I guess I have to step it up." And I think that's the positive side of it. Guys who may love living here and enjoy that life now suddenly are realizing, I might need to start cutting back on the midweek candies and booze, and maybe start putting in a few more laps, because otherwise I'm going to lose my job. And that's I don't care whether you're in corporate America or whether you are, in athletics. That's the way it goes. Real quick, and then we got to get out of here. When I was at Turner, I remember I was a full-time producer, right? And we had a fantastic team. And then one day there was one intern. The next day there were two interns. There were three interns, four interns. And these interns were amazing. They were all incredible. They could do stuff that none of the rest of us could do. When you were talking about not just from a technical ability, but from a creative ability. They just had ideas just flying out left and right. And let me tell you something. That shook up the entire staff when some of these kids came in and showed what they could do. Because now you realize, oh my God, this guy's infinitely cheaper than I am. I better start, maybe I've been a little comfortable. Maybe I need to start working. And it's the same throughout life. So if you're just starting out, embrace your creativity, embrace your work rate, and don't be afraid to disrupt the system. And if you are getting up there and you have your idea of what you think works and blah, 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 don't be shocked when some youngin' comes along and shakes the pillars of your particular heaven. And just be ready for it and embrace the change, and hopefully you adjust in time.
All right, I have a dog staring me down that wants to go outside.
No, you gotta you gotta do that.
Yeah, or I'm gonna get bit. There's a big football game too, and John Nason wants a prediction so he can laugh at us or maybe give us props as he's listening tomorrow on the way to work. John went LSU. What about you?
LSU 45-38.
Yeah, I'm taking the over.
It's going to be Star Wars. Just tell you, between Burrow and Trevor Lawrence, it is going to be Star Wars.
I'm going to go LSU by 10. I'll take the over. I don't know what the spread was. I'm not sure what the spread was. I think John said the over was like 67.
I don't recall what the spread. I thought it was like 5. Was it 5.5?
I think LSU by 10. So I'll go LSU by 10. And I think Burrow goes ridiculous tonight.
There you go. All right.
So tomorrow morning, we'll be back normal time. We'll be back on a normal schedule this week with some crumpets and espresso at the end of the week. And then we will be back at a normal time at the brew house next Monday. And
that's
it'll be
right.
Right in maybe the beginning of the second half of the transfer window. So there will be ridiculous things that happen. Christian Eriksen could be with Inter by then. Could happen. Other moves could happen. Pepe Reina is at Aston Villa now. There could be more things. We'll have plenty of things to talk about next week.
That's right. Zaniolo out at Roma with an ACL injury. He's the 20th since 2014. Yeah.
That's strange.
Problems there. Don't be shocked if Roma comes calling for a global call for skilled and talented midfielders of the attacking variety.
Okay.
All I'm saying.
We will see who that could be. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about things in the domestic scene tomorrow morning, 9:00, and we'll talk about Soccer Over There things on Twitter at Sock Over There. You can always yell at Nick Alifi on Twitter as well, and we'll have some crumpets and espresso for you later this week. Thanks for listening, y'all.
Mucha Euro, yo.
There we go.
Mucha Euro, yo.
Mucha Plata, y'all.
Go Tigers.